Hi, and welcome to the Blurry Turtle Podcast. Today's podcast has no sponsors, because I'll never sell out. Now, a lot of people will make noise about stats here, first serve percentage, unforced errors, etc. These things are nice, but do they really matter? I've put together an easy-to-use chart to compute who wins, full of the real essential stats. And here they are. The first most important stat in this finals is the smashy scale. Both these players rate extremely high on the smashy scale. Sabalenka is actually a 9 out of 10, extremely likely to smash away at anything and everything that appears on her side of the net, and also willing to emotionally smash at any undesired outcome. It's very impressive. Because she occasionally goes to a slice retrieval, I can't award her a 10. More smashy, please, Arena. Now, Anisimova, no matter how hard you hit the ball at her, she goes full smashy. I've actually heard that when she sleeps, she snores like smashy, 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 smashy. These are excellent stats. So she takes the lead there. Second most important stat in any Grand Slam finals is hand gestures to the box. Sabalenka goes with the classic wave off move to her box. It's dismissive and it's effective. When someone does this to you, you can't possibly fight back. Advice? Dismissed. Support? Dismissed. Sabalenka has a great relationship with her team, and this is a major key. Anisimova falls a bit short in this category. While she does go to the angry jazz hand gesture to her box, also known as the what the fuck, only around half the time is it actually warranted. This is a common rookie mistake. You want to spam these gestures as much as you can and complain about as much as you can. Given her relatively stable demeanor, it's just a skill she hasn't had a ton of practice in yet. Room to improve, and a clear edge here to Sabalenka. There are some players who make you feel inspired. When Nadal wins a big point and hits the big vamos, the crowd says yes. Timing these big celebrations is important. It's a big emotional let out. If you lose the next game, things can go bad. Sabalenka and Anisimova are both excellent at this, but Sabalenka's unforced errors tend to make it less exciting when she triumphs. At times it feels like she could have won the game quicker. This actually gives a slight edge to Anisimova. This section, started out facetious, but I do think that the crowd is more likely to feed into Anisimova's energy and play style. The last question, as we're getting serious, is how much of the story is, clouding my judgment. For Sabalenka, I'd say not that much. She has some rough losses and some strange outings, but Arena has tremendous results at Grand Slams. It might not seem like it due to her game being a bit volatile, but she's one of the most consistent number ones on tour. This year she's been in the finals of Australia, Roland Garros, and now the US Open. When a disappointing Grand Slam result for you is the semis of Wimbledon, which she made this year, you're doing something right. Her year wasn't as consistent in 2024, but she won 2 slams. So, a better season than this one in terms of trophies. Long story short, Sabalenka being slightly error-prone and impatient does make me always fear that reversion. So I am feeding into that a little bit, just kind of going through my own, biases of analysis here just to, help me going forward. I think the wind weather issues from Roland Garros are unlikely to appear here. There's rain in the forecast for tomorrow, about 50% chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon. So the tournament is very likely to close the roof. So, Sabalenka is going to be able to serve decent, not worry about difficulties timing the ball. For Anisimova, I have to admit that I'm getting a bit caught up in this. Avenging the Wimbledon loss against Iga and the level she hit against Osaka to win have me feeling kind of like she deserves this. It would be a ridiculously heartwarming story. It's what I think I want to see, so I have to kind of temper my analysis and optimism a bit and try to look at both sides. So I'm just going to dig into the odds a little bit here. So Anisimova served at 61% against Osaka. It was possibly the best match of this tournament in either bracket. They played tremendous tennis. Neither one of them backed off their shots for almost 3 hours. It was 2 hours and 58 minutes. So even knowing the outcome, I think it's still worth watching a replay if you missed it and you're thinking about it. For me, I felt the level that Osaka brought was good enough to win the title. Her ability to deflect power gave Amanda a ton of trouble. There were just a ton of points where Anisimova was looking for a short return after she hit a great shot and was, visibly surprised that the ball came back so low and so deep. It took just a ton of mental resolve for her and a lot of physical exertion to hit through Osaka. But in the end, she did. Anisimova never backed off the level that she was looking to play at. She played offense throughout. Never stopped believing in her shots also, which, did end up getting her the match. I think, Osaka was scoring mostly by counterpunching, and it's just extremely hard to do that for a long match. You just really have to stay perfect, and it's hard to do when the other players get in a swing freely. In the second and the third set, Osaka started to make a handful of errors on defense that she really didn't in the first, and that ended up costing her the match. A couple backhands long on defense, a forehand in the net. She looked at her box incredulously a couple times just at the quality that Anisimova was bringing, and sometimes I disagree with her, but this one I agree. Anisimova played ridiculously well. It was impressive that Osaka managed to hang in that situation. I felt watching the match, if Osaka had won, I would have been picking her in the finals. So for Anisimova to beat her at that level was impressive, and to outlast her also. The first set is one that could have gone to Amanda, and the fact that she dumped it and then kept fighting, just really impressive resolve from her. The other reason I thought Osaka could win the finals is because her serve is still one of the best on tour. She's able to hit unreturnable serves at a moment's notice, and when you add that to her defense and the weight of her shots, I feel like she's a bit more consistent than Sabalenka as far as offensive production. When weighing Anisimova's chances, things kind of shift a little actually. Anisimova stayed above 60% first serves here, but she doesn't really score off of it directly. Osaka was 15-1 aces double faults. Anisimova was 7-6. These are okay numbers, but keeping Sabalenka from teeing off on returns is really important. It's important to keep her from getting in a rhythm also. Once Sabalenka locks into a rhythm, she can win, 2 or 3 games in a row easily against anyone. So Osaka was able to drill a number of return winners. And honestly, she muffed some second serve returns on big points that might have gotten her the match. So, a great win for Anisimova, and definitely has a chance in the finals, but we'll have to defend her service games, and that might be tough. I think Osaka might have had an easier chance, which is, strange to say given how off the tour she's been, but it was a good result. For Sabalenka's semifinals, I'm not really going to pull a lot of new data from it. Pegula was down 4-2 in the first set, played 4 very solid games. From there, the match never really looked in question. She was broken to start the second and the third. So, never really a point after the first where Sabalenka looked like she was going to go down, and she was up in the first. So very easily could have been, a quick straight set match. Pegula did have 4 breakback points in the third, but it always felt like she would have the tougher time holding serve at the end of that match. Pegula's steady baselining presents that opportunity for Sabalenka to implode. If Sabalenka does implode, Pegula gets the win, but it just didn't happen. Anisimova being more aggressive, I think, presents a really different question. And I think, going into the finals, the levels they've displayed so far in the tournament are very impressive, but I think the head-to-head data is probably the most important thing to look at here. And it's something I think everybody's aware of at this point. Sorry. So, Anisimova and Sabalenka have played, 10 times on tour already, and number 11 is the most important. So this should be really good. The most recent meeting at Wimbledon was a pretty titanic clash that just saw Sabalenka just a bit unable to defend against Anisimova's ground strokes. Hard court is obviously going to give her a bit more time and a much more predictable bounce. But I think the same issues here for Sabalenka. She doesn't have that raw speed that Osaka has to quickly react to those ground strokes. And, it means Anisimova can get inside the baseline. From there, she's pretty unplayable at this point. There's going to be some unforced errors. She was 50 and 45 against Osaka, so that is a ton of unforced errors. But, she seems to be able to find that rhythm eventually, even if things are tricky at the start. And she doesn't back off her shots. Doesn't seem to hit her way out of matches either. So pretty impressive stuff there. The previous meeting this year was Roland Garros. Sabalenka won this in 2. Not really a surface where Amanda has any success, so I'll probably toss that result. In all the matches, you kind of want to look at the hard court, I guess, to see, what exactly you're going for here. So fun fact, none of their recent matches on hard court have been close. 6-4, 6-2 for Anisimova, in Toronto. Really cooked her there. Sabalenka was the chef in Australia with a 6-3, 6-2 victory. And 2019, you can fling that out the window. But again, 6-3, 6-2. So, this kind of means that anything is really possible here. If both players have enjoyed this kind of success, they both have huge offense. So if it's their day, it might be their day, I would say, through no fault of her own, Sabalenka has had the easier draw here. Vondrousova's withdrawal kind of set her up with an opponent she'd been dominating, with Pegula. And she's through to the finals completely fresh. That's, as soft of a route to the finals of a major as you can really get, even in this era. So, expect her to play well here. Some slight question marks for me about how Anisimova will feel after a 3-hour semifinals. It was a really wild match. I'm interested to see if she's a bit flat for the finals, emotionally and physically. It just was a titanic clash, and, she left a lot out there. Hard for anyone to really come back perfect from that. Hopefully she's fine. Since that's in play, since they both had some solid success against the other in similar conditions, does feel like any result is possible here. That being said, if Anisimova's not exhausted, I still kind of like her to win. She's had consistent success against Sabalenka because Arena's not really the most consistent player on defense. Sabalenka's lateral movement is great for her height, but it's not as good as you need to be to shut Amanda down. So if Sabalenka wants to win this, she needs to serve big and, land her serves often. She was, at 67% against Pegula, which is tremendous. 43-27 winners to unforced errors. She's coming into this playing really good tennis. Just, I think, I just think Amanda might be a little bit better defensively, able to reflect power a little bit better also, and she just got a ton of practice in that against Osaka. Just dealt well with a big server also. Osaka hit some unreturned serves, but Anisimova managed it mentally well. I'm not saying she put them all back in play. She really didn't. But, that mental task of staying solid, I thought she handled really well. So I really only see Anisimova losing this if fatigue becomes a factor. But I also think this might be the first time they split sets, since Anisimova has struggled a little to stay out of trouble in her service games. It's not the biggest delivery. Her first serve percentage is decent, but, they're not going unreturned. So I like Anisimova to win this in 3. I think it's going to be a great match. If she's tired, Sabalenka can win in 2. It'll be a disappointing finals, but, another great season for Anisimova. Paolini had one of these with 2 Grand Slam finals, and it really launches you into a new tier when I think, Anisimova's already in. She's going to be in the top 5 after this. So just tremendous play from her. Great consistency from Sabalenka to make another finals. I just think Anisimova is a little more technically sound in baseline rallies. And, the players she's defeated, Swiatek and Osaka, I think they would be a fairly even prospect against Sabalenka right now. So I like Anisimova. And that's pretty much it. I'll throw the men's side up sometime tomorrow. Still thinking about it. Just 2 wildly different semifinals today. Maybe not what everyone expected, but a ton of questions now, about Sinner's health. So, hoping some extra data comes out about that to give me the right answer. But anyway, it's somehow 1 a.m. again, so I'm going to get some sleep. Maybe you should too. Maybe I should stop talking.